Hey there! Today we're going to talk about an ink by a brand which was not covered in an Inkcyclopedia entry before this point. So I'm very happy about that. We're talking about Sailor Jentle ink. Sailor, Japanese brand. This bottle was graciously donated by Joost Appelboom from Appelboom Pennen. These are fascinating bottles. This is the second Sailor I own. The first one was, I wanted to cover that in Inkcyclopedia, but it was a limited edition, and someone gave it to me as a gift, and I just don't know what the name is. It's a nice reddish black ink, but it doesn't matter. Today we'll look at this ink, and I do know what this is. This is Sailor Blue. That's fairly straightforward. These are fascinating bottles. There is a type of plastic thing in here. So what you do is you turn the bottle around. That's sort of a funnel-like thing. Ink flows in there, you turn it around, you put your pen in, ink is trapped, and it's easier to fill that. So be a little careful when you jam a pen in there. As to this ink, it is a dark blue that I have to say I like quite a lot. It's, I would say, like a navy blue, very dark, not a whole lot of shading, but in such a dark ink that was to be expected. It performs well, flows really well. I had no real hard starts or skipping issues. So I think that's very cool. And overall, I think it's 50 milliliters of ink. It's made in Japan. I think it's a very cool, nice ink. So I think the best thing we can do is do a writing sample. I should point out that there is a new test included in the Inkcyclopedia. I hope you'll enjoy that, and that's all there's to it. So, enjoy the writing sample. I hope that's going to be useful, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye. Alright, so here we go with Sailor Jentle Blue. A nice, dark, rich blue. Let's start with some fine writing. The quick brown fox said, "Hello, sailor." A medium nib. This is a very dark blue. Some people, I suppose, may call this a blue-black. Very dark. I enjoy it. I think it makes for a nice, intense color. Metallic. Alright, let's have a look at some passes with a 6mm pilot parallel nib. In other words, serious nibbage. Beautiful vibrant blue, look at that. I think that's absolutely gorgeous. Come back to those in a second. I would like to make a change in the Inkcyclopedia entries right here. I used to do some flexi writing with all 4 of these nibs. Now the problem is, this is the only flex nib. The other nibs, especially the medium nib and the italic nib, are quite hard. So in all honesty, I don't really see the point of doing more writing, trying to do this in a flexi manner when I cannot squeeze any line variation from these nibs. So from this point onwards, I would like to propose that I do some extensive flex writing here, so that you get an idea of what this ink would look like in a flex nib. But I don't think it adds a lot to go through the other nibs and try to add more pressure if, you know, that doesn't really make a difference from what I've written here. If you want to see me do all the flex stuff here, then let me know and I'll gladly add it again. It's just that I wasn't sure whether people actually find that useful if it makes such a little difference from what I'm doing here. Okay. Railroading. Let me just squeeze a drop of ink out there into the feed. There we go. That didn't do anything, did it? So that is what you would get out of a flex nib. Really have to go slow here. Even then it railroads a little, but something like that. Okay. Now let's have a look at some fat writing . J for gentle. Let's do a second pass while I'm at it. It looks dry. Okay, then I should do a little bit of writing. So what we are getting here is a nice dark, maybe it's not so much blue-black, maybe it's navy blue. Maybe that's a good way to describe it. A very intense dark blue. I really like it. I like the way this color, I think, is very nice. I don't really like those very light blue fountain pen inks, but I think this is very nice. You get some nice shading. You also get a bit of a sheen, a reddish sheen. I'm not sure how well you can see that. I hope that will show up in the pictures, although it depends a little bit on the lighting. There seems to be a red, well, I won't call it a halo. It's not as with Noodler's Blue Nose Bear, for example, where you get the sort of feathering halo, but there does seem to be a little bit of red in the writing, and it's very difficult to show you that, so I'm not sure whether I can do that, but you know, just so you know, that seems to be in there. Okay, well, then of course there is the moment you've all been waiting for, the Tardif test. as of today, I should also add, according to Dan and Eric, the brown benchmark. Now, I've been giving this some thought, and I thought, what the heck should I use to use the brown, to do the brown benchmark? And I've come up with the ultimate solution. So, here we go. The brown benchmark. Now, I hope you like that. I certainly do like that. Alright, so, this was just a little bit of damage control I had to do there. I think it's time to have a look at the eyedropper of death. See how well this ink likes water. Also, we need to take a brush, load it with water, see what happens here, and in the meanwhile, all the things I have to keep track of, do a third pass right there. And then we should talk a bit more about this ink. So, I'll start doing the scorecard, and then I'll come back to some observations. So, what have we got? We have cleaning. Well, just put some water on there. I don't know. I think my finger is going to be blue for a short while. Thanks a lot, Eric and Dan. I really appreciate this. Now, no, actually it's coming off. See, so I think cleaning is going to be pretty good. Then we have bleed through. We'll have to check that once the writing samples. Bleed through. God, I can't write anymore. Bleed through. It's the ink. I'm inhaling it now, so that's... Actually, these Sailor inks have a pretty peculiar smell. I'm not kidding. We have the color. The color is clearly a dark blue. We have shading. Well, although there is some shading, it is a fairly dark ink, and I don't think it is extremely pronounced. So, I would say shading is about okay. Then we have flow. And flow seems to be excellent. I inked up the pens, they all wrote straight away, no hard starts, etc. Excellent. Then we have feathering. Have to come back to that. We have drying time. Well, that seems to be good. Even with these 6mm nib, it seemed to dry fairly quickly. And finally we have waterproofness. Well, that's what we have to assess now, don't we? Okay, so I'm grabbing me a tissue. Getting rid of some excess water. And it looks to me like this letter has suffered quite a bit, but it's also quite legible. When it comes to this bit, well, you can sort of read it, but a lot of it has faded quite significantly. So, I'm not too impressed. I think when it comes to waterproofness, there are better inks out there. So, I will say it's okay, but not great. Okay. Now we should have a look at some copier paper, but before we do that, I would like to show you another ink that's a little bit like this. So here we have the Sailor. Blue. And although I am wondering whether I didn't pick an ink that is somewhat lighter, for some reason I had to think of Diamine. Kensington Blue, which is definitely lighter, but it also has, I don't know, especially in the shading bits, this shade's a lot better, has some of those darker areas. So it's not a one-on-one match. There were some others, maybe Bleu Nuit by Gerbin, but that's a little bit more of a blue-black. There's probably some others. Okay, let's have a final look before I move on to the copier paper. The shading, you see this goes from a, well, dark blue to a very dark blue. There isn't that much of a difference between the three, I would say. So, I mean, that also gives you an idea of the shading, which is not going to be extremely pronounced right there. Okay. The brown benchmark. Bloody hell. Okay, great, man. Awesome. Alright. Let's start on cheap copier paper with some fine writing. Don't see any particular feathering issues, there's no real skipping, so that's all fairly good. Medium. Again, no real feathering. And yes, no, feathering. Fortunately, right here, we have a big nib and now, come on. Right. Okay, where's my cap? Here's my cap. So what we get here is no feathering with this 6mm nib. With the flex writing, that's a lot of wet ink. You do see some feathering. And that's pretty much all there's to it. So, let's go back to our scorecard and finish that up. By the way, what should we conclude from the brown benchmark? Well, I guess the ink splatters nicely, and it actually gives you a bit of an idea of the highly saturated bit in the center, and then it sort of moves off and it gets less saturated, or something. The Tardif test, what you do see here, at least I do, is that red sheen. I'm not sure whether that's visible to you, but it's right there. So that gives you an idea of this. And also, of course, the shading from a dark to a lighter blue. But you see that overall, there is not a whole lot of shading. I wonder what would happen if I would do this or that with a patchy sunset, for example. Okay, finishing up the scorecard. I have kept you long enough, I would say. Bleed through. Yeah, well, this obviously doesn't really count. When it comes to lettering, there isn't that much. A little bit right there, but I think that is like ultimate flex writing. On the copier paper, bleed through for the 6mm nib and the flex nib, but for the regular writing, not a whole lot. You see a little bit there, but that's a broad, very wet nib. So overall, I would say bleed through is good. Then we have feathering. Well, I think feathering is good too, especially on nice paper like Rhodia. But even on cheaper paper, it doesn't seem very pronounced under regular writing circumstances. So, there you have it. Sailor Jentle Blue, Tardif test, Brown benchmark, all kinds of writing stuff going on there. I hope this was useful, and I'll see you later.